Let's get into Friday feedback for the week. You can always email info@davidpakman.com. Sometimes we'll feature Spotify comments, YouTube comments, messages that come in on Substack. Anything's fair game. Subreddit posts. We start today with a Spotify comment, which is unfortunately more common than I like to admit. Joe Babiggins said, I would rate this show negative stars if I could. Well, you know what, Joe? You can't. And as I mentioned, there is a concerted campaign to downrate the podcast on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. I'll be honest, if enough people did that, it would hurt the discoverability of the show. It's just like, I don't think it's working because not enough of these people are doing it. But if they did a concerted effort to downrate my podcast on Apple and Spotify, it would hurt us. The good news is that when I went to my audience with tears in my eyes and said, sirs and ma'ams, there are people trying to hurt the podcast. They hurt me. Would you please go and rate the podcast what you believe it deserves? If it's 5 stars, great. Okay. On Apple Podcasts and Spotify, about 3,000 of you did it. And it was a huge help. And it made it so that Joe Bobiggins's desire to rate the show negative stars ended up impotent, totally impotent. Okay, Poyu Tread, 123 says, David, you start your show telling how you will give subscriptions to help buy food for those in society without, but then say again how you aren't a socialist. Surely a contradiction. Only if you have no idea what socialism is. The fact that I have a for-profit business and believe I should be allowed to doesn't mean I think people should go hungry in one of the wealthiest countries on earth. In fact, it is a form of capitalism practiced in Denmark, in Sweden, in Norway, in Finland, in Iceland, and other places. It is a form of capitalism that you have private businesses that are allowed to make money, but that they are taxed and that the tax money is used to ensure that people don't have basic needs that are unmet. That's a form of capitalism. It's called social democracy. Some, I was told a couple of weeks ago, call it social capitalism. There is no contradiction. My view is completely consistent with I have a for-profit company, I pay my taxes, and sometimes I will do fundraisers and donate. It's a beautiful thing. That's how it works. Thank you, Poyu Red. From the subreddit, Burn Down the Forest made a post called, If the Dems ended the shutdown in order to release the Epstein emails, then I take back all the negative things I've said. Getting snapback, paying our federal workers, and getting to refocus the country on Epstein after a month focused on the GOP ruining healthcare is well played, in my opinion. Yeah, last week I said, sometimes the facts change and then you change your view. I don't know whether the entire end the shutdown, these 8 Democrats vote to end it, suddenly the Epstein emails drop, Trump's in a panic, Snap is back. I don't know whether that was planned and calculated by Chuck Schumer. I don't have evidence to tell me that it was, but it might have been. And while my take on the shutdown was, if Democrats knew they weren't going to be able to get the healthcare subsidies, and they should have known that, why subject people to losing pay, losing food stamps, causing chaos at our airports, etc., in order to then end the shutdown with nothing? Didn't really make sense to me. This individual says, imagine if it was all carefully calibrated and orchestrated to do exactly what it is that happened, which is put all of the attention back on Epstein. I don't know. You tell me whether you think that's possible. Also from the subreddit, Faithlessness Abject 7 says David is dead wrong about healthcare economics. This is from a segment last week. He states that you cannot improve quality without raising costs or reducing access. This is a gross oversimplification. He makes no mention of how increased spending in preventative or early intervention care massively decreases costs and improves access for chronic condition treatment. Further, the connection between improved access and improved quality is well established through economies of scale, cheaper procurement of medicine, and better training. He makes a correct point about administrative costs, but fails to mention how these costs are largely dedicated to the ridiculous regulation that overcomplicates U.S. healthcare. Massive oversimplification, and he makes it sound so black and white disappointing. Well, listen, criticize me for things that I actually did, but in that segment, I explain. Without changing anything structural, you're basically picking a point on a triangle, balancing cost, access, and quality. What the left wants to do is do structural changes that will expand the triangle exactly the way that this person writes. I also pointed out Republicans are philosophically against all of those ideas. So I don't know if this person simply wrote this post before seeing the entire segment, but I said exactly the very things that you accuse me of not saying. Criticize me for things I've done, please. That's my only request. Bad Andy 328 writes, the turtlenecks have got to go. I've been watching, I don't know if this is a joke or for real, but I actually think it's for real. I've been watching the show for over a year now, and I've been holding back on saying anything about it. But after seeing David in a turtleneck in his most recent episode, I can't stay quiet any longer. This guy needs some serious help with his fashion choices. Does his wife actually let him walk out of the house in these outfits, knowing he's about to show off his whole torso on YouTube for thousands to see every day? Listen, when it came to the ridiculous ads complaining about flimsy tortilla chips, I can just pay for a membership. I no longer have to wonder what kind of madman gets croissants mailed to them versus going to the bakery, and he gets my support for the show. It's a win-win. But seeing my man fight for the people, exposing Trump's absurdity while wearing a turtleneck, David, you got to invest some of that bonus show money on a wardrobe stylist. I know it may seem like wasteful spending, but trust me, people will thank you for it. Love the show. Get rid of the turtlenecks. Listen, as I've said before, sometimes I will get fashion advice. Let me see how I can say this politely. I'll get fashion advice from people in the audience, and then we'll look them up and see what they look like on Facebook. And these are not people I should be taking fashion advice from. I like the occasional turtleneck. I get complimented on it in the real world. When it gets blustery, the turtleneck is nice. It, makes it so you don't need to wear a scarf necessarily. And as I've said before, the turtlenecks are going to continue until the morale improves. So get ready for it. A Jiggity40 writes, why are the Obamacare premiums going up so much? Were we going to subsidize them forever? I'm with the Democrats trying to prevent people from getting killed by the premiums going up. But why are they going up to the point where we had to shut the government down to try to get the taxpayers to subsidize them? Did Obama create a plan that was destined to be unaffordable? I understood the reason for COVID era help for people, but without that help, now the premiums are thousands of dollars. Why is the Affordable Care Act system so unaffordable? Folks, subsidizing healthcare indefinitely is not a radical thing. Yes, the idea was subsidize it indefinitely. Trump came in and was like, okay, I can't get rid of Obamacare. I'll just try to stop the funding for it, which will make it not function well. But many countries, capitalist countries with a strong social safety net, they subsidize healthcare indefinitely. Sometimes they subsidize it directly from the government in a single payer system. Sometimes they subsidize it in a way more similar to Obamacare with premium credits. Yes, that's the idea is subsidize it indefinitely. Is that so crazy? Monte Cristo 666 says, love show, skip interviews. I've been a daily listener of the David Pakman show for nearly 10 years. I've been a member for at least 5, but I skip his interviews every time. They are boring, lower quality than the rest of the program. And I guess I just think he's not that great of an interviewer. Also, mostly random, uninteresting guests. Anyone else in this club? Well, listen, one of the things that has always been the case, I get emails from people who go, I only like the interviews. That's it. This other stuff I don't care about. Or I hate the interviews. Or I only like interviews with lawmakers. Or I only like interviews with non-lawmakers. If I'm a bad interviewer, that I apologize for. That would only be my fault. But the great thing about the show is anyone is free to watch or not watch any specific parts that are interesting to them. And that is all I can offer. Midnight Moonrise wrote on the subreddit that the 8 Democratic senator defectors did the right thing because the shutdown had to end. And says, I understand Dems got nothing. I understand the subsidy extensions are never going to survive the House, but the shutdown needed to end. And I'm going to summarize that friends and family were federal employees going without pay. It was getting bleak. Cost of living is all-time high. People are facing foreclosure and eviction, essentially just making the point that they didn't cave. They needed to represent their constituents. And that means getting government open to save people. And the final paragraph says this seems like a classic sunk cost fallacy, where too many progressives online want the shutdown to keep going because the Dems didn't get any concessions yet and we're 40 days in. There is no good option, just the least bad at the end of the day. More expensive healthcare is better than millions of people losing everything. Listen, I don't disagree with a lot of the assessment, but the outcome is so predictable that it was known from the start that it would end like this. And so at the start of Friday Feedback today, we had this idea, what if this was a brilliant maneuvering meant exactly to dump the Epstein files at the worst possible time? Okay, that's a possibility. But beyond that, the outcome is completely predictable. So my problem isn't Democrats realizing we've got no leverage. It's that they should have known they didn't have it at the beginning. Let me know what you think. Great bonus show today. Sign up at joinpakman.com and make sure you're getting my daily newsletter on Substack at substack.davidpakman.com. Appreciate you watching. Stick around for this next video and don't forget to hit subscribe so you actually see our uploads. You can also catch the full podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.